All right, so if you don't like reading, then I'll give you the Spark Notes. So basically, I enrolled for French, and the advisor told me that I would regret it because I would forget, because she forgot. But when I first walked into the classroom, that's when I first saw Liz, and she was cool. I didn't really think much about it. I was just excited to learn French. So I remember, like, I was the first person to raise my hand, and I forgot what I asked, but she was like, "That's a good question. That's an interesting question." And yeah, so that's part one. Part two. This is off the dome, by the way. I did not write this beforehand, besides my book. But little promotion. So yeah. So that was French 101, and yeah, I didn't think much of it. She was a really good teacher. I had a lot of fun in that class. I fell in love with French. I love French. I love France. I love Paris. I love south of France. I love Nice, Bordeaux, Toulouse, Lyon, Marseille, Normandy, everything. Even the French-speaking African countries and the French-speaking islands, like La Martinique. Anyways, okay, that's part two. Part three. So I really loved French, and so I enrolled in French 102. And that's when I developed a crush on her. And I remember this one time I was going to study abroad in Montreal, Canada, and Quebec. And when I told her that, and I told the class, she freaked out. She was like, "Oh my God, Kelsey, you're going to Montreal? Oh, dude." And so she gave me a hug. And then she looked at me, and then she gave me another hug. Yeah, it was so funny. That was part three. Okay, so part four. I had a show in New York with one of my friends from Boston, Michael. And I had a huge hangover, but I had class the next morning. So I went in, and I was there a little early, and she saw me. And I told her that I had like a hangover and that I went out. And so she was like, okay. And I was like, "Can I stay in your class and wait till the next class?" And she was like, "Yeah." So I sat in the back, and like my head was down and the lights were off. And she like came up to me, and she was just asking like, "Are you okay?" But even though I had a hangover, I wanted to participate in her other class. That's part four. Part five. Okay, so I wrote my first full French song, Au revoir, and after class, I showed it to her. And when I showed it to her, she was like dancing, and she was like, "Okay, Kelsey, you wrote this?" Gosh. And then she lifted her hand up like this, like for a high five, right? And then when I went to high five her, she grasped my hand like this, and she intertwined her fingers into my hand, and then she and I was just going for a high five. And I think at that time, I don't know if I had like a strong crush on her at the time, but when that happened, I was like, "What, are you feeling me or something?" Part five. Part six. It was the last day of class, and I wanted to continue my French at Quinsig, and like I asked her like, "Hey, is there like French 103?" And she's like, "No, there isn't." And So that was it was the last day, and I felt like it was the last time I was going to see her. So that's when everybody left. I came up to her and I was like, hey, can I tell you something? I forgot exactly what I said, but I was like, I don't know if I said I'm in love with you or if I was like, I love you. And she was like, she was like sitting down with me in the desks. And she was like, oh my God, Kelsey, I love you too. But like, as a student. Part 6. Part 7. Then she said, like, I think we talked about the age difference at first. She's like, Kelsey, I'm like old or something. I was like, well, she's like, she answered, she's like, oh, you don't care about that, do you? I was like, nope. But she was like, I think that was the main thing. I'm not sure. But she was like, I was like, I don't know. She was like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know. I think I was nervous or something. And she's like, do you think I was going to jump out the window or something if you told me? Part 7. Okay, part 8. So that happens. And then she gave me like a box of donuts. And she said, alla prochaine. And then I went to Paris without any money for 12 days. And I found a Louis Vuitton bag, and I just like found random things off the street to give to her. Like when I was there, everything reminded me of her there. Like, she is the Eiffel Tower to me, like, for facts. But yeah, this is part 8. I'm going to cut it short because the next part is a little juicy. So the timeline's pretty confusing, and I don't really feel like thinking about that. But I'm not sure, maybe like a few months later, I remember her talking about how she worked at a high school. So I wanted to truly apply to this program called TAPIF, right? Teaching Assistance Program in France. I wanted that so bad, and I even told her about it beforehand, and I'm pretty sure she said, like, yeah, I'll write you the recommendation. So I email her, I Facebook Messenger, I try to contact her through any way possible that I knew of, and she completely, like just vanished on me. She, like, what the heck? Part 9. Part 10. So the Christian club drove me from Quincy, drove me to the high school that she worked at. And so I walked in with the stuff that I got from Paris for her. I thought she was still working at Quincy, but I guess, I don't know, she quit or something. I don't know. So then I waited in the front desk, and then she walked she walked there, and I was so happy to see her, and I think she was super surprised to see me. I don't know, maybe freaked out. But I was like, oh my God, like, hi Liz, like, and then I repeated myself, and I told her that, like, I was in love with her, and she said, Kelsey, I'm happily married. And I'm like, okay, well, can you still write me that recommendation letter? Part 11. So we sat down in front of, like, everyone was looking at us, and she had her laptop on her lap, and, like, I guided my hand to the mouse pad, and, like, I was trying to, like, search for something for a TAPIF for the program, and then, like, I took my finger, and then, like, I rubbed her thigh a little bit, and, like, I don't know, she let me. She didn't move. She didn't say anything about it. And then after that happened, we got up, and then we went into the office, and we talked about, like, oh, do you have a car ride home? And then, like, we tried to call one of my friends or whatever, but I was like, I'll be good. And then I left and I told her, Quran do. Just believe in God. Part 11. Part 12. When I was walking away, I looked back and the last thing I saw was her opening up my gift and looking at it. And that was the last time I saw her. And that was like 3 years ago. One thing that I didn't mention is that during our French 102 class, she showed the class this article about the president of France and his wife, Brigitte Macron. And he was a student when she was a teacher. And she was 40, he was 15. And she was married with 3 children, just like her. And when she showed that to us, she looked directly at me. And that's why I want to become president of France. Well, that's my story. If you want to know more details, go read my book, the 17-book collection, part 1, part 2, and part 3 right now. Thanks for listening to my story. And don't listen to the haters. Learn from the haters. Use the haters to benefit you and help proceed your goals, because they're your goals, not theirs. Anyway, I'm not trying to mess up her marriage or her family at all. I'm just waiting, and I'm just leaving it up to fate. Before, I was like wishing for a divorce on her, but it's up to God. Merci beaucoup.